Grüß, willkommen in einem anderen video. Welcome to yet another exciting video, in this case part 7 of my Core Commander training series of videos, in this case covering an example game. This video will provide an example 2 game turns of the Fulda Gap southern flank scenario. In this case, a Russian force of 6,000 to 7,000 points are attacking an American force of 3,000 to 4,000 points. This translates to a Russian tank regiment attacking an American mechanized infantry battalion. The troop density in the scenario is far too high and is the main cause of the bloodfest that we'll see in these 2 game turns. The number of elements need to be dramatically reduced, possibly even halved, to give you a more reasonable game. I am redoing my scenarios to reduce the troop density to something that allows you to complete a game within a day and also doesn't result in the kind of bloodfest that you see in this video. Nonetheless, this gives you a good example of a game of Core Commander. This scenario represents a hypothetical Russian attack through the southern Fulda Gap path. The climatic region is cold, the season is summer, and the current weather is clear. The Russians have decided to start the game turn on game turn 3, which is dawn. They could have started during the night, but the fatigue impact would be too great and cause them significant problems when the Americans counterattack. The American forces are all fortified at level 4 or emplaced. The Russian artillery is emplaced and off the playing area. American reinforcements are scheduled to arrive on game turn 11 or 12, which means the Americans must keep the Russian advance to a maximum of 90 centimeters for 8 game turns. Phase 1 is the initiative phase, during which each player determines their initiative total for the game turn. This will determine movement order, whether a breakthrough move will occur, and if playing the optional weather rules, if a weather change will occur. In this case, the Russians win the initiative and decide to move second. The Russians achieve a breakthrough. There are no weather changes. It must be pointed out that in most cases, the attacker will always win initiative in game turn 1. During the fire phase, the Americans plan a pre-planned interdiction fire against one of the roads which enter from the Russian player edge. The Russians conduct no area or interdiction fire. They could fire smoke barrage, but as the Americans are equipped with thermal imaging, the benefits would be minimal, so they do not. The Americans target the Russian left flank road with their interdiction fire. This is because this sector is lightly held and it may be possible for a Russian element to, in travel mode, to move deeply into the American territory. While unlikely, there is no downside conducting this kind of pre-planned fire for the Americans. Both the Americans and Russians conduct no aircraft missions on game turn 1. The breakthrough fire cannot occur because the Russians are not on the playing area on game turn 1, so there's no benefit winning a breakthrough on game turn 1. The Americans conduct the first command phase. All on-playing area elements are in command control and have a line of supply. All artillery elements in headquarters are in place. All headquarters have a defend order, so no new orders are sent. The artillery is allocated to the battalion headquarters. No aircraft allocation or mission orders occur. The Americans conduct the first movement phase and decide to conduct no movement. As they are all fortified, it makes no sense to move. This is why the Russians made the Americans move first and is a common tactic in this situation. The Russian player is the second player. All off-playing area elements are in command control and have a line of supply. All artillery elements are in place. All headquarters have an attack order, so no new orders are sent. All artillery are allocated to the tank regiment headquarters. No aircraft allocation or mission orders occur. The Russian player is the second player. Russian forces advance onto the playing area, avoiding the interdiction area. All elements avoid opportunity fire by the enemy anti-tank guided weapons by ensuring they only move 5 centimeters in opportunity fire range, or less than 15 centimeters before ending up in opportunity fire range. On the Russian right flank, 2 mechanized companies advance into the heavy woods. The concentrated BM-2 infantry combat vehicles have a base observation range of 8. It's dawn and the vehicles have moved. As a result, the observation modifier is 5, resulting in 40 centimeter observation range. As a result, even the American elements which are in position behind the deployment line can easily observe the Russians as they enter the playing area. The Russians take advantage of the heavy woods to ensure they cannot suffer opportunity fire from the American M2 infantry combat vehicles. The BMP-2 infantry combat vehicles move 20 centimetres to the edge of the heavy woods, expending two-thirds of their move. They then expend the remaining one-third moving through heavy woods, moving forward an additional 6 centimetres. They then dismount, with the infantry placed in front and the BMP infantry combat vehicles move back to the rear of the infantry. The Americans are unable to conduct opportunity fire as a result. In the centre there is a lack of terrain to hide behind, but there is a hill which allows some elements to advance closer. The Russians' tanks will need to do some manoeuvring to avoid the anti-tank guided weapon range of 25 centimetres, but 4 elements find themselves closer. In all other cases, the tanks only move 14.5 centimetres in order to avoid opportunity of fire. The Russian left flank has some heavy woods, which can also be used to avoid opportunity fire. The built-up areas also allow some elements to move to the edge, expending 18 centimetres in order to do so. This expends two-thirds of the element's movement, allowing the infantry to dismount and expend one-third of its remaining movement allowance, moving forward 3 additional centimetres through the heavy woods. There are no morale test causes for game turn 1, thus no activity occurs during the morale phase. There is no smoke to remove. The game turn marker is advanced 1 game turn, but as there are no reinforcements next game turn, there is no further activities. The first game turn is complete. Players will now have conducted the first game turn, which should be possible to get through in 5 to 10 minutes. Subsequent game turns will not be so quick. It is now the beginning of game turn 2, which is a daylight game turn. The Russians have 7 game turns to advance at least 90 centimetres from their friendly player edge. During the initiative phase, the Russians once again win initiative, deciding to move first this time. They did not achieve a breakthrough in this case, which is rather unfortunate. It's a fire free for all, or free fire zone, with both sides letting loose. Because the Americans were not visible at the beginning of the fire phase, the Russian counterfire is limited. The American dispersed vehicles have a base observation range of 6. It's daylight, but the Americans are hulled down and fortified, resulting in an observation modifier of 3. This results in an observation range of 18 centimetres. However, by firing, the Americans open themselves to fire combat during a subsequent phase, which will happen to be the indirect fire phase. The Americans fire all available anti-tank guided weapons. In all cases, the fire effectiveness is 25 against the defensive effectiveness 11. Using Table 4, the direct fire table, the basic fire column is 12, and it goes 3 shifts off the right column. The T-64 has a small aspect, so there is a -1. The M2 infantry combat vehicles are dispersed, so they have an additional -2 modifier. The M901s do not suffer from this modifier. At a strength of 6, the fire column is 17, with a 0 or +2 modifier to the die roll, depending on whether or not it's the M2 or the M901 firing. The American M2 ICV spins a 4, 5, 7, 6 and 5. The M901 spins a 4 and 5, which becomes a 6 and 7. The Russians suffer significant losses on pretty much every element hit, 1, 2 elements or strength points at least. The Russians did conduct some pre-planned area fire. They basically determined that on game turn 2, all their artillery will be unleashed just behind the start line for the Americans. Now, if the Americans had deployed further back, they would have been safe from this, but in this case they've deployed right on the frontal defensive line and suffer area fire as a result. The 6 area fire templates hit 4 American elements with area fire. Starting with the SAU-152, the range is effective, so the fire effectiveness is 7 using the soft row on table 5, the indirect fire table. The basic fire column is 7. The Americans gain a -4 modifier for being in level 4 fortifications. There is a further -2 for the indirect fire being unobserved, and the Russians are using anti-personnel bomblets, so gain a +2, resulting in a final fire column of 3. At a strength of 6, the fire value is 7. The Russians spin a 6 and a 5, resulting in 1 loss and 1 dispersed, which is no effect. The SA-122s have a fire value of 4, spin a 9 and 4, This results in one loss and a dispersed, which has no effect. The American fortifications have saved the infantry from heavy losses. However, the Americans should have deployed 3 centimetres from the deployment line to avoid the indirect fire. Well, this comes to an end of my 2 game turn example. As you can see, the troop density is far too high and the Russians have little chance of breaking through. Troop density should be much reduced. But even so, the US use of thermal imaging removes the useful tactic of smoke in this case. Better tactic would be to hit a flank hard rather than the centre. My guess would be the Russian left flank should have been the main thrust. If the Russians can get the US forces out of their fortifications, they would start evening the losses, which would mean an overall or eventual US collapse. Of course, the big question then is how much Russians would be left to hold back any US counterattack. And so we come to an end of part 7 of my Corps Commander training series of videos, and this is the last video in the entire series. Players who wish to learn the rules in more detail should consider downloading the examples documents and the rules documents. They're quite extensively documented, and you should have the ability to play a game. However, one thing you've probably noticed by this example game is these are not simple sets of rules. They're good sets of rules, I like them, but they're not simple. As a result, the best scenario does involve very low numbers of elements. That way you can focus a lot of energy and effort into, let's say, 2 or 3 elements attacking one, rather than worrying about such a large number of elements as you see in this example game. If you want a simpler game system that allows you to command a larger force, I've created a simplified version of these rules, my Corps Commander version 5, which is only slightly simpler than the original Corps Commander rules, and as a result I don't consider them as a success, or my version 6 of the same system, which is a dramatic simplification of the rules and does allow you to command this kind of force mix without having your brain explode. Anyway, alle guten Dinge, kommen zu einem Ende.